Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Muenster, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Muenster and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. This is Bob Gibbons.
And I'm your host, Stephen Muenster.
Well, I'm a host too. I just didn't feel like I needed the title this week.
Oh, congratulations. You've outgrown it.
I have not.
Well, I'm really excited to introduce our next leveler for today. That's what you are when you come on the show. Mitch Felderhoff is the president and owner of Muenster Milling Co, a fourth-generation family-owned and operated animal food manufacturer. To learn more about Mitch or Muenster Milling, please visit muenstermilling.com, and that's Muenster milling.com. Bob blows it when I have to spell people's websites.
He's such a bad speller. You'd have made a great doctor. Well, welcome, Mitch. Glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We always like to start our shows with what we call wisdom from others, which is a quote usually from somebody else. And we used a quote from a guy named Les Brown, who said, "The graveyard is the richest place on earth." And you actually gave us that quote, Mitch. So tell us a little bit about why you like that quote.
I think because a lot of people are always scared to take the next step to do something on their own. And so many people take it to their grave. So everyone has good ideas, and a lot of people are just scared to take the risk, take the step to get those ideas out there or pursue their dream, happiness, anything. And a lot of people miss the opportunity to be truly happy in life or to make an impact on the world. And it's a reminder of me that if I have a good idea or something that could help benefit other people, that I do bring that to light and try and make a difference.
So the graveyard's the richest place because people don't act on those things and just take them to the grave. So they have all these great ideas that could have been valuable to somebody financially or otherwise.
That's what it means to me, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of a cool idea. I like that a lot.
I really like the quote. And I think for me, what I've noticed a lot of people, when they don't do it, it's a lot of times because they identify the idea so much with their identity, and that if they fail at it, it somehow means that they're a failure. We had a guest a couple of weeks back, and one of his quotes was, "It'll either work or it won't," right? And I was like, that's just so simple. Either work or it won't. And if it doesn't, no big deal. We just move on. But
yeah, you don't have to get your whole identity tied up in the fact that it's a failure. I mean, the failure is that you don't try again.
Yeah, I love the quote. Thank you. Well, so tell us something that maybe not everyone knows about you, Mitch.
I like to cook a lot.
Yeah, like all kinds of foods, like chef style, or are you the barbecue grill master?
I try to do both. I'm just naturally a little better on the grill.
Okay.
My family, my brothers and I, we all grew up as Boy Scouts and learned to cook on fires.
Okay.
And Dutch ovens, and we can basically make anything on a grill. So
love the Dutch oven.
It's a lot of fun to go outside and fire the grill up.
But if we dropped you in the middle of nowhere, are you going to be able to survive and cook something edible?
I would probably lose a lot of weight.
What rank did you get, Boy Scout?
Eagle.
Eagle?
Oh, nice.
Nice. Congrats.
Thank you.
My, I guess, brother-in-law just got Eagle Scout. He's young, so I feel like his uncle.
I was like, wow, late bloomer?
Yeah. I got kicked out at second class, so I always respect that. It's tough.
So, Mitch, tell us about Muenster Milling. Give a little bit of history. I know it's a fourth-generation family-owned company, but kind of where did you guys start, and how's it kind of evolved from there?
So my great-grandfather started the business in 1932, and he was working just hard labor out on a farm for a couple of the farmers in the area. And all the farmers were taking their grain and driving to Fort Worth with it. He got tired of building fences and picking up rocks and not making any money, and convinced the farmer he was working with to borrow him money to start a feed mill in Muenster.
Wow.
And so he started the feed mill, started processing all the grain, making flours, until he was able to actually find it cheaper in Kansas and drive it back down.
Wow.
So he started driving grain back from Kansas to Muenster, as opposed to processing it all in his facility. And then that kind of went by the wayside because all the bigger flour mills started popping up, and it was kind of hard to compete. So he had this new feed mill, or a new flour mill, nothing to do with it, so he started making dairy feeds. And we made dairy feeds for about the next 60 years.
Wow.
Feed for cows, I assume that means.
Yes,
okay.
sir. And he actually died when my grandfather was 16 years old. And my grandmother then leased the business out. And my grandfather had to go to the war, so he was over in World War II.
Uh-huh.
And then he came back, and when he came back, he took the business back over. And then that's when it really started to grow.
That's incredible. So leased out the business while he was at war, comes back, steps back in. At 16, he probably didn't have a lot of like handed down training, right? So he had to just immerse himself, I guess.
Yeah, I think he was actually 13.
13.
So there was about a 9-year gap there where my grandmother leased the business out. And then, yeah, he came back from the war and kind of got thrown in because the guy that we'd actually leased the business out to, that my great-grandmother leased the business out to, he actually had some health problems and fell ill. So it was almost like, you're doing this.
Wow. So he got kind of thrown in, and then it kind of grew from there?
Yeah. He had the attitude of do it and do it right. And it was a good attitude to have at the time, and he wasn't scared to work. And
so when did your father come into the picture, and then you and your brother, I understand, are in the business now? Yeah,
my father came into the picture basically as soon as he came out of high school. My grandfather, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, we didn't have equipment, robots, and it was all manual. So it was pick up 100-pound bags, move them,
right,
and do everything by hand. His body started falling apart. So my dad out of high school was basically told, you're doing this. Wow. And he came in, and we really started making a lot of changes when my dad took over, probably about 15 years later.
What kinds of changes?
So the dairy business had moved to basically California and Wisconsin, and at one point we had about 109 dairies in our county. And those pretty much disappeared overnight. So my dad took out a pretty good sized loan at the time and brought in a extruder, which is what makes pet food. It's the same type of equipment that's used to make cereal. And we didn't have any customers. We just knew we had to do something different. So we started making extruded animal foods at that point.
So what was the first animal that you made food for other than dairy cows?
Horses. And
Makes
then
sense.
dogs and emus and ostriches. And at one point, we were the largest manufacturer of emu and ostrich food in the U.S.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'm sure you used that when you were picking up girls in high school.
It was a thrilling 2
college.
years.
That's hilarious. So how did you end up getting into the business?
I wanted nothing to do with it. I was, as a Texas high school kid, you're absorbed with sports, and
Sure.
I loved football and was convinced that I was going to be the next Troy Aikman. And so I played football, and I really wanted to still be part of sports. I wanted to do sports medicine. I went to North Texas, was an intern there for 3 years.
Go Mean Green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did the athletic training for the football team, soccer team, and track and field. Saw everyone there, worked really long hours, never made any money, and had very little family life.
Oh, man.
And was able to see that probably wasn't right for me. Worked as a personal trainer for a year for 24 Hour Fitness. I really liked the sales side of it. At the end of the day, people just wanted to pay money and be skinny, and I didn't like the process of training people. So my dad was in need of help on the sales team and asked me to come back and help, and that's how I ended up there.
So you start in sales.
Mm-hmm.
I understand now that, you is you and your brother own, or you own it?
Brother and I own it.
Okay.
We bought it in December of this year.
Congrats.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Last year.
Of this last year, yes.
Yeah. And so how did that transition go? Because, I mean, like, sounds like historically they've been rough transitions. Was it different with your
It
dad?
was tough.
Yeah.
Because they had some difficult transitions. From trying to figure out a contract. There's the whole family business thing got really tense when my dad bought the business. And it was, I don't know if I would say it was tense for us. It was just an incredibly long process. So
Just trying to agree what the price was going to be and how it was going to be structured and all that.
yeah, one part of it was just telling them, hey, it's time to sell, because we had been there for a while and we were able to make some changes that we wanted to make, but a lot of the changes they weren't necessarily on board with. And we knew in order for us to do what we wanted to do with the business, we needed to buy it. And it took about 18 months.
You know, it seems like that's in a family business, the hardest part is when the parent who's in charge right now doesn't agree with sort of the new ideas that the younger generation has. And that creates a lot of conflict. And I worked for a company that was in the 5th generation, and it took the company down because they couldn't agree. And in fact, even lawsuits occurred as a result, which is sad because it was a 105-year-old company, and all of a sudden it's toast because they can't agree. So I'm glad you guys were able to work that out. And so tell us some of those ideas that you've implemented since taking over.
So since taking it over, we have immediately brought in some new technology. And we have made quite a few upgrades to the equipment that we use. We have implemented a HACCP, which is a hazard analysis of critical control points. So it's just a way to have a little bit more direct viewpoint over what you're doing to make sure that the product you're making is what you want it. Part of the problem is we would have issues and never fix and solve why were we having those problems with the food.
So then you'd have a quality issue, and then you'd have to
it was just
reboot.
Get cells up, knock them down, get them up, knock them down, and we were tired of starting over.
So quality control, I guess, has to be a major issue in your business.
Absolutely.
And I know there's been a lot of stuff in the press in the past about, Chinese imports, and you can't bet on the quality and all that. I mean, is all your product made 100% in Texas? But where do you get your your materials from, raw materials?
Most of our ingredients we try to buy as local as we can. We still deal with a lot of family farms that we dealt with in the 30s.
Wow, that's amazing.
Kids that I went to high school with and my brother went to high school with now run those family farms.
Wow.
And then all the vitamins and minerals are 100% non-Chinese ingredients. So being a smaller company, we're able to source 100% of our needs outside of China. So it does give us a little bit of advantage.
Very nice. So in doing this kind of a business, what is the biggest issue in trying to gain the confidence of a customer?
They're used to marketing sales, and not having the marketing budget that a lot of these bigger companies do is tough, but
Sure.
it's just we approach everything on an intimate one-to-one relationship with people, and it's just grassroots. So we get out there and spend time with people.
It's amazing how that works, huh?
Yeah.
So mass marketing doesn't necessarily have to be done when you're more of a smaller independent. So that's kind of nice.
Well, we're going to go to a break, but before we do, you're in manufacturing, so cheaper's always better, right?
I wish.
Stick around. We'll find out after the break.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand. And landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at TexasTenantRep.com. Again, that's TexasTenantRep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
This is Sean Duncan, president of SMD Consulting and Accounting. You're already listening to something more than a typical radio show, so why not listen about a CPA firm that's different than your typical CPA firm?
Welcome back to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. Our guest today is Mitch Felderhoff, fourth generation owner of Muenster Milling Co, based in Muenster, Texas, and you can learn more about them at muenstermilling.com, and Muenster is spelled Muenster.
Good job.
I know.
All right. Well, I alluded to it before the break. We had a war of words there, but one of the things I thought was really interesting is you talked about one of the challenges you learned from was cheaper wasn't always better. And having worked with a lot of manufacturing type companies, I thought it was an interesting mindset. So share that if you wouldn't mind.
So over the years, we've done a lot of things. We've made a lot of decisions based on price, and it's which consultant do we use? Let's go with the cheaper one. And typically there's a reason for that. And like on the consulting side of it, typically if it's more expensive, you're not paying them to learn anything.
Right.
So they know everything already. They're quicker, better, more efficient. We've taken the cheap route on packaging before, and spending $1.50 on a bag instead of $1.20 may prevent us from having to bring back $30,000 worth of dog food because the bags were not staying sealed.
That's crazy.
Equipment, for example, sometimes we've taken the cheaper route on equipment, and the product doesn't look as good. And if the product doesn't look good, people don't want to buy it. And at the end of the day, it's a nominal cost in order to make a better product.
Sure.
I would think it'd be really hard for an independent manufacturer like yours to compete based on price anyway. So if you start cutting back on all those little items you were just talking about individually, it sort of snowballs into a lost cause because you can't really compete with the giants that are out there.
Yeah, and we had to learn that the tough way. And part of it was we were trying to be price competitive to those guys, and that's part of what drove us to take these routes. And a lot of that was we just didn't know what we were trying to do as a company, and we didn't have clear goals. And once we set better goals, we were able to make the decision that price was not going to dictate what we did.
So how does that show up now? So like, is it a gut thing? You're kind of like, when you're looking, it's like, were the pains deep enough that you just have learned it, or is it you run across yourself, you find yourself trying to be cheap and you put yourself in check?
Yeah, the cuts were deep. It hurt. And you can only go tell someone you're sorry that the product didn't turn out the way you wanted it to so many times. So we eventually said, you know what, we're done playing the cheap route.
Yeah.
And basically we set some goals for the company on what we wanted our product to be and look like and who we wanted to sell it to. And if what we're trying to buy doesn't help us achieve that, it's out.
Good for you.
So you guys have implemented a new e-commerce platform, I know. And so people can go to your web. Is it just straight to the website, muenstermilling.com, to buy, or is there another website for that?
Yeah, muenstermilling.com.
Okay. So, and that's a fairly new thing for you guys?
Yes and no. So we've had one for about 15 years, but it wasn't set up to be successful. It charged shipping. It was really expensive and not very user-friendly. It was a website built in the 90s that never got updated.
Okay.
And we updated it a little over a year and a half ago. That's one of the mistakes we made then was we went with a cheaper web designer, and they did a terrible job. And really they built the house on sand, so to speak, and started seeing some warning signs. So I'll give a shout out to Globe Runner. We use those guys. We switched to them in March, and they've done
Spent some time with Eric yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
He's been a guest on the show, in fact.
Okay. Well, they did a fantastic job helping us kind of rebuild the integrity of the website, so it functions better than it used to, and we really feel like we have a strong foundation moving forward.
So do you primarily sell through the website, or what are the other distribution channels you guys use?
So the website's a very small percentage of our business, but it's a growing percentage, and it's probably the fastest growing. The other methods we use, we go through distributors, and we try to work strictly with independents and family-owned businesses. And then we also do small-scale private label.
So with the small scale private label and things like that, do they view you as competition since you have a website that you're selling it direct as well, or?
Not really.
No.
I mean, they know people are going to buy food online.
Sure.
You can find dog food all over the place on the website.
Right.
So if they're buying it from us, we use our money that we get on our e-commerce platform to help support advertising initiatives for the independent retailers. So
Okay.
we try to put it back towards the independent and family-owned companies we work with.
So if I wanted to go buy it and not wait for it to be shipped to me through the website, where can I go buy it in the Dallas area?
Pet Supplies Plus is one of our largest customers here in Dallas. They're individually franchised,
Okay.
and they've got 12 to 15 locations, Russell's Feed over in Fort Worth, and then a variety of independents throughout.
So I've always wondered about the private label business because, certain stores, it seems, if I go buy their private label for whatever, let's just call it some sort of cereal, and I see their, the wheat checks, and then I see their knockoff checks next to it, they call it something else. Sometimes it's just awful, and other times it's really amazing. And in fact, there's one particular grocery store chain, I can't tell the difference, honestly, between quote the real stuff and the private label. So when you're dealing with private label, how do you make that distinction, or do you make that distinction, or is it strictly a marketing issue?
It's 100% up to them on what they want
Okay.
in that product. So some stores come to you and say, hey, I want to make more money on dog food. Show me how to make more money on dog food. Other stores will say, hey, I want exclusivity on these customers. I want them coming to me and not going to Petco or PetSmart. How do I get them to keep coming back here every time and still have a really good product? So typically it's kind of, when you walk into a business, if it's being run well. And the same thing goes with most stores. And if it's a store that you feel like they know what they're doing, their goal is to take care of me, it's probably going to be a pretty good product. If it's let's get volume and cheap prices out the door, typically it's how can they make that as cheap as possible and still make a good margin.
Thank you. I've always wondered about that. So it sounds like you're acting as a consultant almost with the retailer to customize a product based on whatever their particular need is, or their profile, or what they're trying to do with their customer.
That's fair to say, yes.
Okay.
What would you say is the biggest challenge for a business like yours?
Probably government regulation right now, like it is for most people, probably.
Affordable Care Act, different. What?
The FSMA, the Food Safety Modernization Act,
Okay.
was a big one for us because it basically said that pet food manufacturers have to be almost to a similar level of facility as what human food manufacturers are.
Wow.
How long ago did that come into play?
Our pets are becoming people, literally.
Exactly.
Well, that's exactly where I was going with that, because I'm like, it's amazing what I see people doing with their animals these days.
So they passed it
for
2
a different
years
show.
ago, and it goes into effect next September.
Okay.
They've given us time to adapt to it, but really it just makes food expensive. It makes the pet food expensive, at least.
So when they, throw down a mandate like that and you've got to upgrade all your technology, do they give any extra incentives or credits or anything? Like I know they try to push all the doctors to these medical record systems and everything. And, for the first couple of years, if you're an early adopter, they give you, instead of deductions, they give you credits. Is there anything like that going on, or?
Yeah, we get to stay in business.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Oh, our government helping
And
us
now,
out again.
now I can eat my dog food at least.
I thought you were doing that anyway. So, in reality, though, what did that mean you had to change in the way you were conducting business?
A lot of it was traceability. So knowing where the ingredients coming from. So there's some good to it, but it just makes it tougher to operate because things that we know are safe ingredients, it just creates a lot more paperwork.
But I would think that would help somebody like you. I mean, because you were already independent, you already were doing that, you already said you weren't going to do anything from China.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, it sounded like you were sort of there, whereas your competitors probably are having to play a lot of catch up.
Yeah, but at the same time, we have to talk the farmers that we work with into coming on board with it too.
So it's a whole supply chain issue.
Yeah, so we're responsible for ingredients all the way through to the reseller. So we have to control what type of truck the food goes on, what else is on that truck that is going to be carrying our food, where does the store put our food, and code dates, track everything. So a lot of technology expense as well.
What's the enforcement mechanism for that? Is that the FDA inspectors or?
Yeah, FDA operates it.
Okay.
So we get inspected by the FDA regularly, and then AFCO, the American Association of Feed Control Officials.
Sounds like you've made a lot of changes, some forced and otherwise, to your business. I mean, and you've undergone a lot. But if you had to change one thing about what you're doing today with your business, what would you change?
We'd like to add more technology.
Equipment, machinery, or
both? Yeah.
Okay.
The equipment, machinery always shows up on Monday at 8 a.m. It's always there. Technology kind of reduces a lot of user error. It also helps just automated actions, and it kind of keeps us in line.
So if you were talking to somebody who's wanting to get into that business of manufacturing of something, let's say it's not a competitor directly, but they want to make something else, what is sort of the biggest aha moments you've had? The three things you might tell them that you just got to do this.
Don't go cheap. The second would be to hire people before you need them, because that's burned us quite a few times, not having people on staff. The third, there's about a billion other things, honestly.
A billion things would be number three.
Yeah.
What's next for you? I mean, if we're sitting together 3 years from now, what would you like your business to look like, personal?
We'd like to build a new state-of-the-art plant that can...
Same location?
Yeah, in Muenster.
Okay.
It's got to be in Muenster. Come on.
Yeah, town's been good to us.
Yeah.
We'd like to triple our capacity, and we'd like to help more independents like us.
Triple capacity.
Yes.
And why that number? Is that just because that's the size you'd like to get to, or is that because of certain demand factors that you're seeing playing out?
The demand is out there. We do have some of the equipment already that can produce that. The most expensive part is building the building and making it all tie together.
So tell us all the different animals that you're making food for.
Dogs, cats, horse, fish, sheep, goat, llama, turtles, and
not my hamster.
Still a few. No,
Sugar
no
gliders.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that's a lot of different things. I mean, do all of those use similar ingredients, and it's just the way they're mixed, or is it very specialized for each?
Some of them, there's a lot of crossover. Anything livestock, they're going to share ingredients, and any pets will typically be in the same category as well.
Interesting. Well, so Stephen, you have a whole plethora of options
I'm
to
eating
eat
well.
from.
I'm going to be eating
You'll be
well.
having a casserole of various things.
My kids are listening. You know it's coming.
Well, Mitch, thanks so much for being our guest today. We
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed getting to know you and your business. Our listeners would like to learn more about Muenster Milling. Please go to muenstermilling.com, and that's M-U-E, and not M-E-U, because that'd take you somewhere else you don't want to go. If you'd like to know more about the show, please go to nextlevelshow.com, and you can see everybody we've ever interviewed on video or just listen on audio.
If you heard something today that you wanted to share, or you know someone that would benefit, please help spread the word. Have a great week.
See you next week.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.